another kid.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity to serve your people, just guide and lead us as we make decisions today for the betterment of our nation. Thank you, dear Lord, for all the blessings you have bestowed upon our families. Forgive us where we fall short. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Jody Fishenhoff. Here. Denise Taylor. Here. Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Joe Byrd.
Honey.
Julia Coates. Here. Janelle Fulbright. John Garvin. Ricky Hargis.
Present.
Tyna Gore Jordan.
Present.
Lee Keener.
Honey.
Dick Lay.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
David Thornton.
Present.
Victoria Vesquez. David Walkingstick.
Honey.
Kara Cowan Watts.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? All those opposed? We have 2 or 3 items today that's going to cause some discussion. So as far as reports, you have a report in your book. If anybody has any questions of the report, please raise your hand and I'll let you address. Councilor Watts?
I have questions for each one of them, actually.
Okay. Lacey Horn, please come forward.
My first question was, somebody received this, that she couldn't, you can, happy birthday from Cherokee Nation, and register to vote. It was a mailer. They wanted to know what budget this
Could you
came
speak
out
up,
of.
Karen?
That one of my constituents, when they turned 18, received this card in a voter registration form from the tribe, and they wanted to know what budget, the parents want to know what budget this came out of.
Courtney Ruark isn't here, but I think I know. I don't want to speak on the fly, but if I can see your response after this meeting, I'd prefer that.
Okay, so she'll get a written response back to us?
Yes.
I assume the whole council would probably want it, or?
Yes, would you send it to the whole council?
Yes.
And can we expect it by the end of the day?
Yes.
Okay. And would you please ask Miss Courtney to be here from now on? Please ask her to be here from now on.
The next question is, could you explain to me the legal and realistic process, I mean, what's legally required for the dividends from CMB? I've had concerns from folks about the additional dividends above and beyond the 30 and 35%. And they may not be classified as dividends, or maybe like MOUs, MOAs, contracts. You know, what is that, how does that happen? So we go, or not we, but somebody goes to the board of directors, asks for money, they give money, you accept it, we expend it on the tribal side, but I don't think we're getting any insight as council on those monies. That's the feel I get, so I'm trying to understand what's going on in reality.
Todd, you want to come forward, and since it has to do with legal?
What I would want is specific instances. Do we know, when you say someone comes and asks for money, do we have, specific instances as to which?
So I guess, and I think I saw Diane Kelly here, I hadn't had a chance to talk to her. So is Career Services getting money from CNB for some kind of projects or something, and there's a contract, and they go to the board and they ask for this money, and it's above and beyond 35% of dividends by law?
I can answer it now, or I can do it when I have a report. It's up to you.
I'd appreciate now, because it's under the treasurer's report, because it was under the context of the council should understand what's coming and going from a budget perspective and concerns of how CNB's on the other side. So okay, explain it.
Last year, we got we got $1 million, it was $990-something thousand to work in conjunction with CNB and any existing outlining businesses to develop economic development. And we have been working with these external and internally. We've been working with CNB on projects, we've been training people, and we've also been working with outlining entities. There's like 4 or 5 businesses, one in Salzburg, one in Tulsa, one in Adair County, where we've done some OJT contracts externally. We used the economic development pool of money, but we've also recruited for CNI out here at the Woodlawn building. And we've also been working with outside entities this last year. I gave a progress report to the CNB Executive Board about 3 weeks ago because I told them that I would give them a report on what all we did and how many jobs we created. And I asked for them to replenish that amount for this next fiscal year going forward because we have several projects that are out there in the works.
So can we get a copy of that progress report?
Sure, can you give it
Is that
to me?
something the whole committee would be interested in? I don't know. Okay, so yes.
Yeah.
So we need a copy, but, so is that simply like actual development around individuals and jobs, or are there business acquisitions also involved in that?
Business acquisitions like what?
Like, are we assisting in helping CNB acquire new businesses, small or large, or something in that?
We're working with CNB on bites. Sean and them may get one, and he may say that this falls more with the government because it's more on the recruitment. Basically, Career Services is working to try to get more Cherokees employed, and that's been our goal with that money, is to get tribal members employed, whether it's internally or externally.
Okay, so that report will be interesting. Now, who's the point of contact for them on CNB side, and who's your lead on our side?
I work with Sean and Chuck Garrett.
So you're the point of contact, but you can't do that work, so who does the work for you?
I am doing that work.
Okay.
Don't tell you you
That's a lot
can't.
with what you manage.
Yes, it is.
I'm not saying,
And I've got staff under me who work for me in that arena.
okay, so who's your team on the government side then?
Right now, we have Shane Kirby, and I also have John Smith, who's one of my counselors over there that's working with that.
Shane Kirby and Sean Smith.
John Smith.
John Smith. Okay. That answers those questions, so thank you very much on
You're
that.
welcome.
And then Treasurer Horn, where are we at on actual financing part on the $100 million health bill? Like, from your perspective, and how we're going to finance that and accept it? I assume those are government entities still, right? Those buildings, the healthcare facilities. So have we figured out how that's all going to be financed and what happens and how we're going to accept it?
Sean? Sean back there? You want to come forward too and help them out?
At this point, there's still no financing arrangement in place or contemplated. They're still working on building it and all that. There hasn't been any decision on that there will be financing on the expansions, health expansions, the clinics.
Yeah, no, we're internally financing that. It's an economic development project of the Cherokee Nation businesses within the 14 counties.
So you're just going to finance that with cash? Or are we leveraging a
Yes.
loan? Okay.
It'd be a combination of cash and loan depending on what the cash position is at the time the expenditure is needed.
Okay, and then that is going to come through and we do a payback, it is a loan to us internally and we pay that back, or you can give those to us? How does that work then? And
Once they're completed and operating, then we're going to work with the nation to figure out how they want to do that.
so we're not going to do that before we build, we're going to do it after we build.
Sean, could you send a memo out to the council explaining that? Because that question comes up every month and we
Sure.
can dispense with this. Thank you.
That would be helpful, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, that's the only questions I have for Treasurer Horn. Merry
Speaker
Christmas.
Jordan.
Thank you.
Speaker
Sean,
Jordan?
I want to get my 2 cents in here.
Sure.
This 100 million that's coming from you, or CNB for our health expansions.
Right.
I want to go on record to say, I hope it's going to be donated to the tribe because that is the tribe's money. So I want to go on record to say that. I don't feel like the tribe needs to pay the money back when we're using it for our people.
I second that.
I agree.
That's up to add to that. That 30 million per year, Sean, that was in diversified businesses, that's the money that's going to the $100 million health expansion over a 3-4 year term. And before, I guess we were buying businesses out of state, but now we're investing money into this $100 million health expansion, which is, well, 1, provide a good service for our people, and 2, get third-party collections. That the health business is the best business to be in. So, anyway, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Councilman Keener?
Thank you, Madam Chair. While you're up here, Sean, if you don't mind, on page 21, the $6 million in investment in joint ventures, could you expound on that a little bit for everyone?
On the balance sheet, I'll have to ask that what that. Not aware of any joint ventures.
Well, it's $6 million worth.
Well, I'm not aware of what that is yet.
Okay. Okay, anything to send to the rest of the council?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions of Sean and Lacey? Okay, thank you all. Kara, who next? Diane, or did you get your questions in?
Well, no, Sean wasn't technically up yet, so I had other questions for him. I didn't know if anybody had anything for
Sean, would you like to
Lacey.
come back?
I don't know that I'd give him an option, Madam Chair, but
Merry Christmas, Sean, to you and
Merry
your
Christmas,
staff.
Carrie.
Please
Thank you.
extend our thanks to all the staff that
Will do.
I know have to work through the holidays
Right.
when their families are at home to make things work. Do we have any plans for future casinos beyond the ones that are identified right now?
We're working on a plan to redo Roland. That facility, as you know, is 30 years old, or close to it, between 20 and 30. And there's a sufficient market down there that we feel like it's a good opportunity right now to rebuild that facility on the same site. Helps with some competitive issues. The Choctaws at McCullough just completed a major expansion that we're up against. There are other markets that we've identified that we would like to try to capture. And if we can figure out a way to do that, then at some point, we will come back to the board and to everybody and make sure that there's a good business case to go forward with some type of offering at those facilities.
Are we pursuing any smoke shops as casinos?
We have identified several different marketplaces. I'd rather not publicly identify those. We're working to try to see if there's some way that we can get sites that we could put locations on. So it's kind of a competitive issue that I don't want to put out there in the public right now.
So how often are we coming to the board of directors and to you to ask for things beyond our dividend and stuff as a government? And what's that process look like? Beyond like those typical small sponsorships and stuff?
Not often, and the one that you're mentioning was one that started under Chad, and we've just continued to do because of the good work that it's facilitating. It helps us as a business train our people and provide a stream of workers to whatever offering that we might have. Diane and her group have been instrumental in helping out with the shortage in food and beverage on short notices, and we place several out of those programs as full-time employees, and I feel like it's been a really good work. It's something that we couldn't do because we're not in in the middle of that workforce. So.
Recently, you guys hired a new vice president, and there was struggle out in the
Could you
community.
speak up just a little bit then? Recently, what?
Recently, there was a new vice president hired. So if, without naming names, so how, I guess the employees were struggling because they didn't appear to, the position didn't exist before, and this is the second one like that.
What
And
position are you talking about?
is it real estate?
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't advertised.
Right.
I'm not necessarily shocked that a vice president position is not advertised except in our context, because normally those are headhunter kind of positions and such. It's a different process for hiring. But could you talk about what was done and what the process was and how it was created and what that role is and responsibilities?
Sure.
And does that person reside in the Tulsa area or Cherokee County Nation?
Sure. That position was a position that had been open for a year. Bill Reedy was the previous Vice President of Business Development. It was not Cherokee. Bill resigned, I think, in September or October of 12. We kept the position open, and the workers there reported to Doug. Doug's got his plate full, and there's a Cherokee that had a lot of experience and business experience out there that we felt like fit the bill, brought a lot to the table. Not only was he very well qualified for the position for a business development standpoint, but he also had a lot of real estate experience. And you know, one of the things besides an IT company that we did have as a core competency is trying to locate these businesses within the 14 counties. So with his background in real estate, we opened the position up as not only VP of Business Development, but Business Development and Real Estate Services. We realigned that group back out from underneath Doug back to the underneath that position's leadership, and that's where it is now.
Thank you, that's very helpful. And then I have three other questions. So on the health build-out, what is the relationship between HWH and CRC? How does that functionally work, and who has what responsibilities?
CRC is trying to develop a capability in construction, and as I understand it, HWH is a company similar to Flintco in terms of they do construction work, and so they have reached out to them to partner with them, much like Matrix Odell partnered with us back when we built the casinos, to act as an owner's rep and to help guide them through the construction phases of the different clinics in the hospital. So theirs is a mentorship relationship.
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you. And can you also include that in the memo back to us so that I have a better understanding? And then also, how are you addressing the continued losses in C&I and some of the other businesses?
Well, we only have two companies that are having losses, and both of them are under turnaround plans, if you will. And we've got various options on the table. C&I just went through a study to understand what was creating the losses and what could be done. What came from that, everybody was invited to that, and for those of you that attended to that, I think is a well thought out plan that told us that C&I is in the right market. We just need to make some management, operational type changes and restructuring and get that back on track. Some of it was related to how we price material and kind of evolved over 30 or 40 years into what it is today. So we have an initiative out there to work on our pricing structures and how we bid contracts and things like that. What did come out of it is that the wiring harness business is out there, and that we need to compete maybe in a different manner, but it's certainly possible to turn that company around in the next 2 to 3 years. We've got a lot of quality, a lot of good folks. Just need to do some different things in the way that we bid market our product against those competitors that are out there with labor from Mexico and China and places like that.
Well, that's exciting, so thank
Yeah.
you. Is that just that, I'm trying to remember which committee that would fall under, maybe I just,
Diversified Business Committee.
And then one last question, somebody asked, are you catering some of our community meetings, is CNE or CNB?
Community meetings?
Providing food at the end of the community meetings? Just a question I can ask.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you, Sean, and your family.
Any other questions of Sean? Mr. Keener?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned Roland, Sean, and
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about the Tahlequah and Catoosa and South Coffeyville expenditures?
Is that for money? That's how much I need to borrow.
Expenditures?
I don't.
Yes. Page 3 of your report, 1.8 million.
For what?
As expenditure highlights, expansion-related costs for Tahlequah, South Coffeyville, and Catoosa.
Okay. Well, we've got several capital projects going on at Catoosa. One is converting the Lyrics Lyrics Restaurant to Highway 66 retro theme. That's ongoing at Catoosa. I'm not aware of anything that's ongoing at Tahlequah. What was the other one?
South Coffeyville.
South Coffeyville.
I was unaware we had a casino there.
We don't have a casino there. We bought some property in that area, and we're making site utility improvements so that if we ever have an offering of some type in that area, we'll be ready to go.
But nothing in Tahlequah that you know of?
The only thing in Tahlequah that we've got going on would be the golf course, completing that. We're in the final phases of that. If you haven't been by to look at that, I encourage you to do that. It's really turned out nice. And then we're also on the verge of awarding a master plan development for the Wilcox property to the south of the golf course. So we'll be trying to put a master plan together for that piece of property.
So this is in addition to the 2.1 million we've already?
No, I think that would be inclusive of that. I'd have to read that particular one, Lee, but those are the three projects that we've got going on.
Well, there was 2 million to Tahlequah, and then this is 1.8 million for the three of these. So maybe you can ask Doug that too, where that's going.
Yeah, for the three of those, that's the projects that are going on. The kitchen renovation there at Lyrics, probably a master plan at Tahlequah. The golf courses thing is, I think, was a 2.1 all-in expenditure, maybe 2.7. I'm not sure where that is right now.
Yeah, please ask Doug that, because I always thought it was 2.1. So
That's at the golf course.
Right. Only though, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Thornton?
Yes, Sean, yes, we, building a new casino down at Rowland.
Yes, sir?
We still gonna keep Sallisaw open?
Yes, sir.
It makes money.
It does.
Yeah.
It makes money and it provides jobs.
Yeah, that's me though. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sean. You have a good Christmas.
You too.
One comment.
Okay.
Hey, Sean, I'm glad we're doing something with that Rolling Casino because Pecola is really up and running.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they're taking the opportunity to serve all of Arkansas on that part of the state there. So I'm glad we're finally putting some money back into Rolling. Because that was the initial casino that created West Siloam and Catoosa.
Right.
So, good job.
Well, thank you. It's an important piece of the gaming. When the economy went bad in 07, 08, there was a plan to build it then, and the board chose to put it on hold. This board has resurrected that plan, and we're going after a capture of not only the local economy, but also to try to capture more off I-40, that traffic up and down the interstate. Yes.
Thank you, Sean.
Sean, how many acres do we have there at Roland? Do you know offhand about just a rough estimate?
Well, I think there's 20 to 25 in the original deal, and then we bought another 40, I believe, 40 to 60 to the east.
The way it is now, it looks crowded up, but
Yeah.
In the new plan, I'm sure it'll be different.
We hope it, we're trying to work on that site plan, because you're right, it does kind of look all clogged there. But I think, I've seen the preliminary drawings, and it really looks nice.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You just said that the previous board had chosen to place that on hold, and this present board has resurrected. Do you know what the reasoning of the previous board was to?
Yeah, the economy went south. Remember,
Okay, it was just the
07,
economic
08, and we
conditions
just-
of
Yeah.
that era. Okay, so it wasn't anything about the project itself?
No, it's a great project.
Okay,
Well deserved and needed.
okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you again, Sean.
Well,
Diane Kelly. David, can you pass that down?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've got my report. This has been a very, I want to say, a busy month for our department. We have had, if you were here this morning about 7:30, you saw the people in the hallway. We had the hallways full, all three areas, because we've got a lot of day training participants that are wanting in this week before the holidays to work. We were calling around trying to get job sites for them, and this is going on in all of our field offices. You won't see as many there as you did here today, but that's the case in all of our field offices. We'll be shut down from December the 20th up through the 6th of January, and that will be to reconcile our cards. We do this at the end of the calendar year and at the end of the fiscal year. And we do this because we're running so many people through the program. But I would like to elaborate a little bit on this economic development that Councilwoman Watts was talking about. One of the things that happened right after the chief took office, and I want to share this with you. I got a call from him one evening, it was around 7:30, and he said that we've got all these positions that are open at the casino, and he said if you look at the casino, he said they need to be filled, and he said, is there any way your people could assist us? And we were already working kind of in an economic development mode, but we weren't getting any resources for it. And I just told him I don't have the manpower nor the staff, and if we took on that responsibility, we would have to be compensated because most of our funds are federally funds that are for anybody that walk in the door. And if we wanted to specialize just for tribal members, we would have to have a venue, because when we're audited, we've got to be able to show the federal government that we have a venue for those specific needs to be met. So with that economic development initiative, it's just only tribal members that we are actually assisting. And we usually pull from all of our field offices. We have people that come into our office with accounting degrees, or they have just gotten out of college. There was a young lady that was in my office last week. And we can make those referrals out, and we can put them on a program for a short period of time in order to get their foot in the door. And that's how a lot of these people have been successful in obtaining jobs. And one of the things that we were able to do through that venue is to work with two different avenues. One was on economic development, one was on the day training program. So I work with Bob and Vivian on the day training referrals, and then we work with Chuck and Sean and them on any of the economic development ventures. And one of the things that we've been able to do, and he says this I appreciate what he said, is that we're working very closely with the food service group in all the different areas and making sure that we keep that pipeline open. We had about 40 people that went through the day training program, but out of those 40, we sent them through for the food handler certification 2 or 3 weeks ago, so that they could pull from those people to utilize them for these special projects, like, for instance, the Christmas party that we had last Friday. We had open house here Thursday. We had the Veterans Center that we opened up, and we also went to the Ross School. These are some avenues where we've used some of our day labor, but we've also used our culinary arts department to help with getting those done. We haven't gone out of the area. Everything has been done here in Tahlequah, because I cannot take those students out of the area, but I can do things here in the local area because I can't transport them to Tulsa. I can't transport them to Muskogee, but anything that's locally right here within driving distance of the center, I can utilize my students over there. So we do a lot of projects in conjunction with CNB. We've been very successful. That report that you were asking me to provide, I felt like I needed to give that report to C&B since it was their dollars and they saw it, and I don't have any problem with sharing it with you. But the report will actually show you how successful we've been in getting people placed. And our whole initiative is to get tribal members placed. And those tribal members are from all over the 14 counties. I want to say something about Mr. Garrett. I've had the opportunity to work with Chuck. I've known Chuck for a long time. And I can assure you, in comparison with other people that have been in those jobs, Mr. Garrett is very well respected. He's very knowledgeable, very intelligent, and I really felt good about working with him on a couple of projects. He follows through on things, and he was in contact with us, and he and I were on a lot of conference calls together, and I appreciated having him there working with me on some of these things because of his knowledge and his background. So I just wanted to say that. I know he's been here a short period of time, but I just wanted to share that with you. Job Corps received their 5-year contract. Every 5 years we have to submit a contract, and I just want to commend Jay Littlejohn and his management team over at Job Corps because we submitted it, and there was a few things that we had to go back and correct, but we didn't have to go down for a face-to-face meeting with the Department of Labor. We didn't have to do a conference call with them on our package. They made a few corrections, called us on a couple of days after it was submitted, and it was signed off on. And that's the first time in all the years that we've worked with Job Corps that that's happened. And I say a lot of it has contributed to the fact that we've got a management team over there that really knows their stuff, and they're doing a good job. Do y'all have any questions about anything?
I've just got a request, Diane, that, would you send me the policies of how people get on the day work program, do they do drug testing on the program, and things like that, you know?
Yes, we do. We do drug testing, but we don't do it on everybody. If you come in to one of our field offices, you may get placed, and then we may come back a day or two later through that week and do the drug testing. We can't do it every day, everywhere, but we try as best we can.
But would you send me the policy
Yes, I will.
on how people qualify to get on the program?
Sure will.
And you may just send it to Gail and send it out to the other people too, so.
If that's what you want me to do, I'll do that.
Yeah, do
Okay.
that, please. Thank you.
Councilman Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And do we have any training for commercial truck driving? No?
Yes, we do. Mr. Darrell Legg has sent several people through truck drivers training, and the one thing about truck drivers training, I will tell you this, everybody that goes through there gets a job. There is not one of those people that hasn't gone through there that doesn't get a job, and they're good jobs.
So who's the contact person?
Darrell Legg, he is the vocational training director.
Councilwoman Watts?
I just, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to you and Anna for the Taro banquet and all the other staff, and Sean, your staff, that Slayton, the CMB staff that put that together. I thought it was an excellent event this year, and people are really starting to make that something they do every year, and you can tell. And then also, thank you for your work on your staff in the GED arena. It's impressive what you guys are doing, and I just want to say thank you again to all that team that does that. And I know it doesn't, not just them, your whole staff really seem to get behind that program, and it's appreciated, and the community knows.
Thank you. We try to work in unison, in teamwork. Of course, John Overacker and Tammy and the staff at Taro, put on the banquet. And then the vendor fair is the Commerce Department, Anna and Stephen Hires. And then the GED, that's Lambert Alberti and Chris Thompson and Stephanie Isaacs.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Any other questions?
Any other, Kara? That all?
No, I said, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hello, Anna. I think Kara has some questions for you.
You do have a copy of my report. I do have one thing I want to hand out to you guys, and it's the schedule for the VITA program that'll start in February. This year we're doing a walk-in clinic in Tahlequah on Thursdays, and this is the first year we've tried walk-in. Usually it's all by appointments, so that's something a little bit new. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Could you thank you, Madam Chair. Could you elaborate more on the Kawi Cafe future project, I think?
The Kawi Cafe, it should be opened in February sometime. We received an A&A grant in order to fund the operations for 3 years. We are just now hiring a manager, and we're going to work closely with Career Services to try to identify some people that are interested in starting their own retail business, or particularly a food service-related retail business, and put them through. It'll be a 4-month training for 7 people. There'll be 7 people every 4 months that'll go through the program, and they'll learn hands-on, how to operate their own business.
Excellent.
At the end of 3 years, we anticipate an entrepreneur taking over that facility and just leasing it from us.
Okay. I wondered, because it said entrepreneurial, and I was wondering how that was going to happen, so thank you. And then, I think you had an RSU project slated on future too, so I wanted to understand more about.
We are partnering with RSU as lots of other people are through the state as part of their Dream Big program, and it's an entrepreneurship business plan competition. And so we're covering, they have several partners throughout the state, and so we're covering Cherokee, Adair, Delaware, and Sequoia counties. And then they have partners covering the other counties, and we're raising funds. We're getting sponsors to sponsor a cash prize in a business plan competition.
Obviously, you'll probably have news releases for the public, but could you make sure that Councilman Keener and I are kept abreast
We sure will.
of those? I know we would be interested because we try to support RSU, so if you could give us early heads up and if there's an opportunity to make sure and support your staff and everything, we'd
We sure
like to
will.
do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Kelly and Susan Chapman Plum. Oh, they're not here. Okay, on down to consent items. On your tarot consent items, we need to remove altogether because of no documentations, AM General Services LLC, it's number 2 on there. And do I hear any motions? Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
I want to abstain because we didn't, what do you mean there's no documentation?
There's no documentation. It accidentally got on the list and there's not the documentation they need.
Oh, so, okay, so this was a recommendation, because this is the Ottawa tribe, so I want to make sure,
Taro told us to take it off.
okay, thank you. Madam Chair, what was, I had emailed, and I don't think I got a response, and I haven't checked email since last night, so what was the difference between what was in our book versus what was emailed out?
There's not a list in your book.
I'm sorry, Shelley, what was it?
There's not a list in your book.
I just swore I read a list.
The tarot certification
Not the
meeting
tarot
was held
list.
after the packets.
Maybe I read one on, okay.
It was emailed.
Very good, thank you. Oh,
Cemetery Restoration Assistance application. Jody?
There's 3 new ones on there, and there's no changes from what's in the book, so.
Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, on to community assistance, Jody?
There's been one addition from what's in the book. That is Westfield Public Schools for $500 for Frankie Harges. Several on the list.
Save the seniors meeting $500 at Tahlequah. Can you split that? Save a senior, it's the prom deal.
Okay, go ahead.
The 3 of us would like to add Save a Senior at Tahlequah High School for $500, split amongst the 3 of us.
Save a senior for $500 at Tahlequah.
500 split.
Homeless.
Is that homeless?
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
The homeless shelter.
Yeah. 500 for the homeless shelter, split 3 ways.
Got that one, Jody?
Yes.
Okay. And then I've got one to add, hold on.
Did you have any of the churches?
Any more additions?
The extra Sunday
Hold on, I'm gonna try to find the one I need to add.
outreach, I'm just doing outreach for them.
I need to give $750 to War Pony.
Okay.
And then I also need to give $750 to War Pony, and then $3,000 to the Democrat Journal for a news reading program that they're starting up at the Adair County Schools. And that's all. Any others? Any additions? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, any law enforcement requests, Jody? None? Roads?
Okay, on the roads, we have 3 motor fuel tax projects. Hickley, $15,000 for North-South Road 411. North Adair County Line Road, $85,537 each for Jody and Frankie. And then on the special bridge funding, there was a refund back to Janice for $1,000.99.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any sports teams, Jody? No sports teams?
There is, yes,
Okay, they are.
yes. I'm getting my mic. There's 3 new ones.
Okay.
Hot Shots, Little Indian Chicks, and Oklahoma Indians.
My county.
See, why do y'all get, stop getting into that?
Okay, all those in favor? Oh, do I hear a motion?
It's 'cause they're throwing themselves out.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? On to livestock?
There's no new ones this month, so.
Okay, let's go on to old business. Dick? We're on discussion of the Terrell law.
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna rediscuss it, so I'd like to make a motion to move that for 30 days.
Okay.
Second.
The motion made and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, on down to the new. There was an email that was sent out, that I sent out in advance about the new tarot. I asked that Shelley send it out, and she did. It was a list of some changes that was being made. It also had the reason for some changes on there. I hope everybody got it. Did everybody get the email? There was also a handout passed out that had a table on there, and it discussed the changes and why. Todd, would you like to come forward, help us walk through this? Diane, maybe you too?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
The table will probably be easiest for you to follow. Diane, you wanna come up here?
It's been a pleasure to work with the committee. It's been a
This will
pleasure to work
probably
with
be
the
the
committee
easiest
as
to
to
follow,
Terrell amendments. We've been able to discuss this in depth fully over the last several weeks. I know you've had the opportunity to see this over the weeks, but so therefore what I'll say is I'll entertain any questions that you have, given the orders of the day, that we'll attempt to answer any questions you have.
Let's just start at the top. Anybody got any questions on the first page? We try to make it pretty clear so there wouldn't be a lot of questions. Dick?
Okay, we're starting at the first page. If you could just kind of go down through here, Todd, and at each change or deletion or addition, probably tell us what you were thinking.
You got a copy of the chart, Todd? You want mine?
Yeah, I
Look
have
off Joe's.
Oh,
It's not in the book.
no, I was just going to, well, I'm going to have the creator of the chart herself go through those.
Okay.
So may I present Ms. Elizabeth Odell.
Okay, first changes were to the definitions. Biggest change, I think, was taking out federal and state because the original legislative act had the federal and state government as part of it, both as an employer and as contractor. And because federal law is going to prevent you applying those same things, they can't do things like give Indian preferences, they can't give Cherokee preferences, they can't do those type things. Federal law prevents it, so it removed them from that where federal law would prevent it. If federal law doesn't prevent it, or state law, then it's fine. So it was going through changing things like that. First one is Cherokee Nation Indian Country. The original definition went further than the Constitution allows, so this brought it back in to be compliant with the Constitution and basically just said it's the boundaries of the Constitution, which is the 14 counties. Then you've got Cherokee Nation government, and it's more a phrasing issue. Then you've got the definition for contractor, and again, that had to do with federal and state government and removing them where federal law would prevent them from being involved.
I've got a question on that. I got a question on that. An example would be if the Cherokee Nation gave a county government money to pave the road and they hire a contractor to do it, we could not have any say-so over the subcontractor.
We can request that they apply our tarot laws, but they can't give preference in certain things that we can give because they're a entity that state and federal law prevents them from giving the preferences that we can give.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So we couldn't, I see, so we could request that they hire.
We could have them put it in their contracts to where, their subcontractors who may not be bound by that could apply it. But for them to have those type of preferences in their contract.
Okay, that's the question I had about that.
And we've tried to apply it to state and federal government contracts before, and they raise this every time, that they can't give this type of preferences.
Okay, I understand.
Did we not already have that in the document?
No. It was in the policies that Tara wrote, but it was not in the original. There was no exemption for federal or state governments. In fact, they were applied specifically to them.
Councilor Coates, questions?
Well, I only know this because this is part of the class that I teach, is to teach this, but I know that there is a federal Supreme Court decision from 1976, right, called Morton versus Mancari, that the Bureau, for instance, relies on in hiring an Indian preference, or using Indian preferences in hiring. So I know that there are federal agencies that define this as a political preference. And I'm wanting, I guess, some kind of explanation or understanding of what the difference is between this versus the application in other instances when a federal preference is allowed.
Indian
preference is allowed.
Indian preference is an issue as much as Cherokee preference is. And some of the statute goes into Cherokee preference.
Okay.
And
So it's
defines
just-
it as a specific Cherokee preference. That is a problem. And that has been found to be national origin discrimination.
Have we considered testing the waters on that at all? Because when it's our government, our contracts, it would seem that maybe it would reasonably follow the same principle, as Indian preference, to be able to do a specific Cherokee preference.
And we try. The federal government is not as willing to be sued for having done that type preference. And they have this issue anytime we have this. We definitely, where they try to say that we can't discriminate, we remove it every time. But when it's applied to them, it's a problem. And making them an employer who then is assessed fees. We're assessing a fee against the federal government and state government for not hiring Cherokees. That's a problem.
So we've never gone into court about this on the basis of what are decisions in federal courts already that do allow for Indian preference and just try to extend it to something that is specific to us. We've never done that. Thank you.
Poor crew. It was just a clarification. on the news. Emergency was one
Can you go
that
over that
was.
core crew? Can you go over the core crew?
Yes,
And just read what it says.
read the whole thing.
Yes,
Core crew shall mean an owner of the firm or an employee of a company who is in a supervisory or other key position such that the employer would face a serious financial damage or loss if that position were filled by a person who had not previously worked for the employer, contractor, or subcontractor. It was just clarifying in the language.
I guess what I'm wondering is, it doesn't really define a core crew other than what you said. Now, if the contractor came in and said, I have 15 laborers on a core crew, are they going to accept that?
No. Taro, the
What
list
you
is
said.
given to Taro. How you use that core crew is then applied later. And there's an actual process for what you do with that core crew. And they present that list to Taro, who confirms whether they actually are essential or not.
Do we have somebody here from Terra? Don, do we do that now?
Yes, we are actually more strict with the core crew list. The only ones that we're looking at are people in the, even if the supervisor positions, or like if a project comes on an estimator who knows the company's ins and outs, we could not replace them. Laborers are always replaced. We're even looking at, for instance, I'll give you an electrical company. All their electricians are not really core crew unless they're in a supervisory role. They lose one, we can replace them with a Cherokee citizen who is a qualified licensed electrician as well. So it actually, from the law that we passed last year, it allows us to actually put more of our citizens on there and reduce the core crew list to only a few supervisory level positions that are very essential to that company.
Well, that was it didn't give a number as to how many they could have. I guess you would determine if the supervisors, they had 10 supervisors, they could bring all 10 of them on board if they were core crew.
Correct. For instance, it would be based on a project. Let's say we're going to build a 3,000 square foot building. There would be no need for them to bring 2 superintendents, 3 project managers, and things like that to oversee 10 employees at a time. When one supervisor would work, or maybe one project manager would even work. This gave us more freedom to actually reduce the core crew list.
As to emergency, that one's not in the chart, because that was one proposed by the chair. So I don't have any explanation for that one.
Councilwoman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question was, how do you measure that or define that? I mean, it was already an issue before the recommended change. I don't know that it's ever been tested or concerned.
Emergency?
Yeah.
That one, definition?
Yes.
John might be able to tell us. Emergency, have you had that come up a lot with Bruce?
Actually, we had one last week during the ice storm. The C&E actually selected a Taro vendor to do snow removal. That was on Wednesday, I guess, or right before. The Taro vendor called them and said, "Hey, I'm selling my company on Friday. I can't do the snow removal." We knew it was coming, and so they actually went to C&E instead of looking at different vendors. They just went to the next Taro vendor on the list to complete the emergency, and they did select a Taro vendor. That is the only emergency that I know of so far.
Okay, I see what you're, okay. Thank you.
Because they're
I got a
required to
call on
contact.
that. So apparently they liked whatever you did because I didn't get a call back. So. Thank you,
Speaker
John.
Jordan? Speaker
Yes,
Jordan?
I would like to know if, well, I'd like to make a motion to recess till 1:15. Have the public to come back at 1:15.
Is that okay? Do I have a second? And start in again?
Do we have a
Okay.
PAC meeting?
And we'll have PAC just immediately following this. It's going to run us a little late. Will that be all right, Denise? Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Recess till 1:15.
I hate to run the audience out, but we're fixing to lock the door. Till 1:15.
Okay, no.
Okay.
Jody Fishinghop.
Here.
Janice Taylor. Here. Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Joe Berg.
Honey?
Julia Coates. Here. Janelle Fulbright. Present. Don Garvin. Frankie Hargis.
Present.
Tina Glory Jordan. Present. Lee Keener. Dick Lay.
Here.
Curtis Snell. David Thornton. Victoria Vasquez. Honey. David Walkenstick. Kara Calvin Watts. Oh, honey. We do have a quorum.
If it's the pleasure of the council, we'll continue on the line-by-line Terrell amendments, and we'll just pick up where we left off with Ms. Odell.
Okay, I think we left off with employer, unless there were any other questions on emergency. So employer, there were some changes to basically make 3 categories, because it was all kind of lumped in together before and designated into 3 categories, so it was easier to understand what those categories, who would be an employer. And you've got Cherokee Nation and its entities, you have a company that employs 2 or more persons that's working on a project for the Cherokee Nation, and you also have anyone who's within the Cherokee Nation boundaries who is Tarot certified. So those are the 3 categories. And it again excludes federal or state government if in fact federal or state law would be violated by including them. The next is for engaged in work, and the only thing we did there was change the or because then it complies with J. Indian, removed the additional language there
Okay, we got a
because
question.
oh, I'm sorry.
Uh,
If I don't recognize you, just raise your hand, everybody, and
On the, I believe it's the J.
Yes.
We deleted and inserted. And I also noticed on your handout that somebody has said also the Cherokee Nation Constitution created certain offices that are exempt from payroll.
The chart was
Who
created.
decided to put that in there? I mean, whose idea was that?
I'm sorry, where are you speaking to? Page 2, Jay, in the middle.
That was actually taken out of what was provided to you. So it doesn't apply, but this chart was created before those additions were taken out. So that was taken out of what's provided for you. That additional language is not there.
So point of information, just to make sure and clarify, not to interrupt Councilman Layer, but if I heard correctly, that is no longer an issue because it's not in the actual edits we're being presented, because I could not find it, but I'd heard about it and I was looking. It is not there.
Right, it's not there.
Okay, thank you.
Then for Indian,
And I still have some.
I'm sorry.
Did you clarify then why the deletion?
Why what?
Why did you go through the deletions?
Why was it taken out?
No, there's some more information
Oh,
in
okay.
there that are
Okay.
deleted from what I see in the book versus what I see in the handout.
Okay. The handout was created based on what we originally proposed, our office. Then there were some changes made. The chart doesn't reflect where there's red or highlighted places, including that one deletion from the language. Is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then Indian,
Of course, too.
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. A byproduct of that on J
Yes.
would be out-of-state employers would be exempt.
If they are doing a specific project for the Cherokee Nation, no, they would not be exempt. What is considered a project, we've defined project later down because it was in there with no definition before. But if they are working on a project for the Cherokee Nation, then they are still included as an employer, but not if they're just a Terra certified company out there. Or the way it originally read, any company within the 14 counties could be considered an employer when they have no relationship to the Cherokee Nation. And that was a problem. So it was more clear that they have some type of relationship, whether it be that they be Terra certified, that they be doing a contract for the Cherokee Nation, or they be one of our entities or ourselves.
And to be an employer, it has to be 2 or more
Yes.
employees. Aren't there a lot that have 1?
It could be any person or company employing 2 or more. If they were by themselves doing work, you wouldn't. They were doing a contract for us, and they were doing it themselves as the company. They would then fall under our guidelines for choosing a Cherokee for contracting.
It'd be a pure contract.
Yes, it would be a contract with that person. It would not be an employer situation where we need to worry about who they're hiring, because it's an individual company that has only one person working.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is the Cherokee Nation Company, let's say in Colorado, bound by Taylor law?
Yes. If they're a Cherokee Nation owned entity, yes. Or CMB owned entity.
And if it's CMB and we do work out of state
Yes,
on contracting,
yes.
only if it's not allowable by state or federal law would they come out of this
Right.
jurisdiction of TARO?
Right.
Is that what this says here?
Yes.
Okay, you know, we went through months and months of this TARO law, and legal was involved almost daily, and all of a sudden now we have to change the TARO law. What, can somebody tell me why and where and how we came to that? This went on for months.
Yeah, and this is a product of.
Why didn't we, if you're gonna fix it,
Yeah.
if there needs to be a fix now,
Yeah.
why didn't we do it previously?
Well, because we've gone through the process of going back and forth and listening to, getting information so this body can make good decisions. And after collectively going through that process, these are the amendments that are placed into this body right now. So it is a process a deliberative process takes time. And we're hopefully at the culmination.
And someone has said, and I think we've heard it mentioned, that we didn't say Cherokee preference in the right places, or Indian preference in the proper places. Have you filled in those loopholes, if you want to call it?
We have done the best that we can, and no act made by anyone is perfect, but I'm sure this, well, I know this is not the first terror amendment, and I'm quite sure this won't be the last, but it is what we have put forward to fix those loopholes and those problems that we have faced.
And if we change, if we amend everything that you've recommended, what does that do to previous companies who have been operating under the previous payroll law that we passed last year?
So the law is not going, and I guess to sum it up, is there going to be a restart, so to speak? If those substantive areas have not changed, you know, if I owed a penalty in the past, before this amendment, I'm going to owe a penalty after this is.
The fees specifically are after this date forward, that you don't, any fees that were owed before are still owed, that the changes start as of that date forward, and it's specific on the fees that it be from this point forward that there be exemption.
Cherokee should go for it.
Okay. Indian, originally, the statute allowed for a broader interpretation, but because it wasn't, it just said if the United States recognized someone as an Indian, which is so broad that it's very hard for anyone to know what that means. And so
Which
it
number
just
are we on?
basically limited it to a member of a federally recognized.
Page 2.
I'm sorry.
It would help if you did note, sorry. No.
I'm just going through the legislative act is what I'm actually doing, word for word through the legislative act. But, that would be, yes, page 3M at the top is where I'm talking about Indian, which is page 2 of the legislative act. The next change is to R, and it is basically a clarification. It's not a substantive change. It's just clarifying the language. X is tribal citizen instead of tribal member. And then AA is to define project. And it was not defined before. We tried to define it in a way that the contracts that are being done, it's not every single contract, because you have things like a water cooler who's in, a vendor who's in Colorado that may not be able to find Indians, that is a smaller contract that is not trying to make them an employer because they contract with us is going to restrict our ability to get anyone in if we then make them an employer and say they have to hire Cherokees or pay us a fee. And so we limited it to like construction type contracts that are your bigger contracts.
Councilwoman Watts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My concern is maybe initially Taro was perceived as solely a construction type organization. But it's gone beyond that. We have very intelligent people. They're doing IT work, they're doing other stuff. So if I understand how this would impact the implementation of Taro law, it would also allow where we should be helping as 8As with government contracts, other folks, database managers, I mean, there's tons of stuff other than construction projects that we should be adding value. I understand if it's a $500, $1,000, even up, maybe up to $5 if you're in Colorado where you're outside the population base. But even then, I think we have an obligation. I understand that maybe we need to make a compromise, but I think this is going way too far away from the intent of the Taro law.
We just attempted to make a definition. If there's some other definition, we're not, I mean,
Of course, I appreciate, yeah, I'm not in no way, but I appreciate the dialogue and that we're always looking at improving it. But I think there's a different answer. I don't know what it is, because I didn't realize how this was actually going to impact. And also, really quick, should this not be Y? What, do we not go YZ to finish it out before we go AA? Why is it AA?
This does not have every provision in the statute. This is only the ones that are changed. So you've got a Y and a Z that come before AA. So this doesn't, the legislative act does not basically replicate the whole Taro law. This takes the sections that were changed. So there's additional.
Okay.
Yeah. So we only dealt with the changes that were needed, not every provision that's in there if they were not changed.
So not all the changes are only in red or yellow?
Correct, they're underlined. The red or yellow are ones that the chair proposed in the one that she provided.
Okay, I never understood that. That's helpful,
Yeah.
thank you.
All the underlines and everything were the original.
The one that's in the blue goes right down the act with all the
I haven't
actual
seen-
ABCD if you want to look at it.
Well, we don't have
Everybody
that.
got a handout.
Yeah, it's a handout on your desk.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, it was?
And Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me then, backing up, if on D, on contractor, if we exclude federal, state, or county government agencies in entirety, if they're in the territorial boundaries, because I thought that was the whole thing that gave Taro the EEOC opportunity, and it was in J, I believe. I mean, are we impacting our obligations as a government to protect our citizens on EEOC matters? Because I think that was the city of Jay that was included on that past suit where Cherokee Nation Taro took up.
No, that may need either.
Okay, so Salina took up a matter that was, it was a city government or county, I believe. And are we excluding then what we've already proven we have obligations and jurisdiction on?
We haven't excluded them as a whole. Nothing's been excluded other than to say if it's prohibited by federal law. There's a mark through because they were actually added in there as always included as a contractor and always included as
But
a.
in the definition, it says it shall not include.
If, to the extent prohibited by federal or state law. So it won't include them if it's prohibited by state or federal law.
Wouldn't it be federal? We don't really care about state? I mean,
State doesn't apply to us, but it does to them, and whether they can apply these
okay,
same
then
laws to themselves.
shouldn't we
is the problem.
strike, except by, we would strike or state then?
The problem is if you take out state that applies to a state, they can't contract with us and have these provisions in their contracts. And so although it doesn't apply to us, it applies to them. So in our contracts, we always exclude out things that say that we can't discriminate. But when we're saying they have to discriminate in certain provisions, state law for Oklahoma prevents them from discriminating. So that's why it says state law. It's not that we're binding ourselves to state law, it's that they're being bound to state law. And so because they're bound to state law, if it prevents them from doing it, because
So
we
it
have a
would
lot of
be-
contracts
We would
with
add
state
to
law.
the extent those agencies are prohibited by federal or state law, not us.
Right.
There
It's
needs to
not
be a
us.
clarification on there maybe.
Shall include federal, state, or county government agencies to the extent prohibited by federal law.
That those agencies are prohibited by federal or state law.
Yes, they're not included if it's prohibited, okay.
I guess I need to propose that as an amendment or something.
Repeat that, Karen.
So at the top, I have it as page 2, so it'd be section D, the last sentence that's being added.
Page 2.
Yeah, so it said, at the bottom of page 1, it starts, this term shall not include federal, state, or county government agencies to the extent, and the amendment would be, those agencies are, and then it would, that would be, those 3 words would be added, are prohibited by federal or state law. So the federal or state law doesn't necessarily apply to us. Just to clarify, because right now, the way I read it, and not being an attorney, it reads as if we would be assuming those.
Did everybody hear that, or does she need to repeat it?
I heard it, but I'm not, until, I'm sorry, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Until I see the entire law with the changes and with the deletions, like is not in my book right now, I don't know what I'm gonna be voting on. Therefore, I wanna see the whole thing.
What I put in here, and I guess I did confuse people, the only thing I put in here is what I had down as changes.
Okay.
The whole law's not in here. The only thing in here is the things that were changed, or that anything anybody sent me that wanted changed.
And I think I need to see the changes in the whole law now. The whole law as now, plus the deletions and or changes that somebody's making.
Okay. You want a copy of the whole Carroll law?
I can't get a full read on what I'm voting on until I see that.
Diane, can you get us a copy of the whole law?
I'm surprised that we didn't get that from legal.
That'll make us copies of it.
Madam Chair, I know I have a ton of questions still to, do we need to table
No,
this
no.
until next month?
I'm
Okay.
here all day. Don't bother me a bit.
I am too, but I didn't
I
know
am
what
here for the
the
people's work.
other
I get
committees were
tired of hearing
about.
people say we're not here for the people's work.
There you go. Thank you, Diane.
Good dog, I'll go back there one more. Okay.
That takes us out of the provisions for the definitions, out of the definitional changes. And then that goes into,
I have one more question, if I may. So, I guess to the double A there, does, it almost it seems like it's a loophole, but would an unintended consequence be that they would circumvent that somehow and be able to get a contract without applying?
it doesn't, the project provision is not within contractor. It's not part of the definition for contractor, it's part of the definition for employer, which has to do if you're hiring people and getting charged a fee. And so that's why we limited where that's gonna apply, because if you have these companies that we're doing random contracts with to get water coolers, whatever we're doing, and then we're gonna charge them a fee for all non-Indians that they have employed with them. They may be in Colorado, they may be wherever they are. And it has nothing really to do with what's going on in the 14 counties, it's just that we need water, and then we're gonna charge a fee to them. And that was kind of, it's only a provision within employer, it's not under contractor. So they will continue to be a contractor, and we will continue to look for Terra certified contractors. And they will have to put this in their subcontracts and things like that. That doesn't go away, it only has to do with employer.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, and
Yeah.
your example is water coolers from Colorado. So you don't think that could be an unforeseen,
Do what?
unintended consequence, that they could get around that? If they're out of state, out of the jurisdiction employer?
They would then not be required to pay a fee, yes,
Right. So
as an employer.
But don't you think they could maybe try to get around the system?
They would, I guess I'm not understanding where you're going.
Well, I don't know, that's just a question. I don't know if they would do that or not.
They would not be considered an employer under this.
Okay, and that may be the answer then.
Yeah, they would not be considered an employer. If they're outside the 14 counties, they're not Terra certified. If they were Terra certified, even if they were in Colorado, they would still be bound by this. But if they're not working on a project here, then no, they would not be considered an employer, but they would still be a contractor.
Then I'm gonna ask the question, let's take HWH, they're not Terra certified, they're outside the 14 counties. Do they fall under Terra?
It what? Sorry.
They're from Texas, they're not Terra certified, they're outside the 14 counties. Are they Terra, do they fall under this?
Not as an employer, but they would as a contractor.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilwoman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the way I understand what you just expressed is, so if any of us go apply for Terra, we live wherever outside, we would still be held, we would be held to higher standards than the non-Indians or other folks who wouldn't apply for Terra. So we're putting a bigger burden on other folks, whether they're contracting with the tribe or not.
Reason being that part of this is having to do with whether we have jurisdiction over those people, whether we can say we have enough contact with them to say we're going to require them to assess a fee. And plus, whether we're ever going to be able to contract with anyone if we're charging them a fee when you're dealing with certain types of contracts, smaller contracts or even bigger contracts that have nothing to do with contract. And if you guys want to change that definition, we're not saying that's the only definition that could be possible for project. That was just one we proposed because we need a definition. If it needs to be broader, it can be broader.
And just what the council lady said, and what this council person said, that something's not right here. We're putting a bigger burden on our Terrell ending contractors, Terrell contractors as we are a contractor. Because what we're doing is making our Terrell people, the Indian contractor, go through all the hoops of showing how many employees they have, what their financial obligations are, and here we're going and hire a non-Indian contractor, and he just gets the contract and he's home free. There's something not right with what we're doing here, Chair Lady.
Yeah, you'd be more advantaged to be out of state and not a contractor.
Exactly right. There's something not right. Because what we're doing is putting more liability and more thresholds onto an Indian contractor than we are a contractor that's out of state. And that's not right. You know, we shouldn't be doing that. Because if you're a Terrell contractor coming in to get Terrell certified, you're going to have to list all your financial, your bank statements, your employees, W-9 forms. If you hire an out-of-state contractor, they don't have to do that stuff. So, I don't know. We need to rethink this some way. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're certainly putting more burdens on our Terrell contractors than we are an out-of-state contractor. That's how I see it.
The only thing I can say in reply would be that we give a preference to those Terra certified companies. So if you've got a Terra certified company that has gone through this higher threshold and hiring employee Cherokees and doing all these things versus a non-Indian, they should be getting the job because they're the Terra certified company. So there's a reason for requiring them to jump through the hoops if they want a preference for contracting with us. Versus a non-Indian that shouldn't be getting the contracts if there's in fact a Terra certified company anyway. But the non-Indian company that has no real tie to us other than they have the water that we want.
Let's do that.
Trying to tell them they are still a contractor, but they are not so we have the half of 1% or whatever it is applied to their contract, but they're not an employer that gets charged a fee for every non-Indian that is working for them. Yeah.
Okay.
They would not get preference.
And I still go back to Jay. I think this is where our problem starts in Jay. And so it appears to me there that if you're an out-of-state contractor who doesn't go through all the hoops of TARO certification or can't meet it, but you beat the price of a TARO company in the Cherokee Nation, you're going to get that work. It's happening now at CNE and CMB. It's happening at the tribe. Don't tell me it doesn't happen. It's happening right now at this minute. It's happening on our clinics. So whoever wrote Jay very carefully crafted a loophole to drive a truck down. And I'm not going to support this.
Speaker Jordan?
Yes. There's a lot of interest in these amendments. I would like to suggest that everyone take their work home tonight with them and that we recess this meeting, because this is the only issue left, reconvene it tomorrow right after rules at 10 o'clock, and everyone will be prepared to...
I cannot be here. I have a health problem. And I think this is important enough that I should be here.
Yeah, I would be fine to recess it.
I helped write this original.
Yeah, I would be fine to recess whenever is good for everyone to be here.
How about the next meeting then?
I'm fine with a special day because I think it needs a whole day.
I do, I agree.
How about in January?
Any date's good with me.
I'd be for good in January, but what I'd like to see is just what Dick suggested. Just take the Terrell laws and insert these changes in the Terrell laws with the whole act. And so we know exactly what we're getting to and where it's at. Writing these laws didn't just start 4 years ago. We've been going through this for 12 years or so I don't see it pleasing everybody, but then again, everybody can't be pleased when we go to vote. So I'm still for inserting these into the law, and then we can read it and see more, of what it is.
Can you do us a red line
How,
version?
and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we will do a red line version, and I appreciate Councilman Thornton's comments and all the good debate and questions that the council has put forward here today. What I would recommend is that we set a special Cherokee meeting of the EMF so that we can go through these amendments line by line and make sure that everybody is copacetic, if not satisfied, with the tariff. But prior to recessing here, we do need to pass the budget law.
Could we table this to a day certain then?
Okay, how about the day of the meetings?
A.G. Hembry?
How about the day of the meeting?
Well, that's going to put it all the way to the end of the month.
No, I meant in January, the day of the first meeting.
13th.
I wonder if you would consider, Madam Chair, that we just take a whole day, say January 14th. The next day, y'all are going to be here on the 13th. Maybe we could take the 14th and put it right together so that we don't have as many people. Some of you could stay overnight, is what I'm suggesting.
Okay, the 14th?
Would that be something that would be 14th, January 14th?
Like at 10 a.m.?
Yes, and let's just take the whole day.
I second that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Let's just plan on taking...
Wait, I'm seeing,
I have a meeting in Los Angeles that evening that I'm supposed to be at.
can you leave that afternoon?
Not can get back there in time for it, no. No,
I was just thinking that most everyone could stay overnight that's having to travel very far. Can you come in on streaming video?
I'll be on a plane most of the day from like...
You're going to leave on Tuesday?
I'm leaving. My flight's about 9:30 in the morning. It gets into LA about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My meeting is at 6. So that's my day.
That's like 5 our time, I think.
We'd let you vote.
I would vote for you to vote. Or the day after our regular.
Yeah, our regular meeting's Monday. Does anybody else have any problems with Tuesday? Anybody have any problems with staying over? No. Okay, that'll be the next meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn or to recess?
No, we got to have the budget.
Oh, we got to do the budget again?
Are you gonna do the 14th just to set a special meeting to adjourn this?
Or is it, you want to adjourn or? Yeah,
You're doing a
special
special
meeting.
meeting on the 14th?
Yeah.
You want to just recess until the 14th?
Just recess till then.
Well, we don't want to recess until you pass, till you consider the budget today.
No, I meant for the 14th.
We're going to do just a special setting on
Special
it.
meeting. You can recess till the 14th.
Yeah.
And then you won't have to call a special meeting.
If you table this to the special meeting,
Yeah.
and you take care of the bond, you can adjourn this meeting and be done. Just have a special meeting in January.
Second.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, you made it?
Yeah.
Second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, on to the budget. Come on forward.
We have a lot of money, but a short list this month. So modification number 4, total of $11,492,495. Section A of my memo, you see there's $423,864 in grants reporting. And Section B, there's 2 budgets. First one is the tax commission modification requesting an increase in expenditure authorization of $11,061,200 for tobacco tax rebates related to the new tobacco compact effective November 1st. There's also estimated offsetting revenues of $11,061,200. So the bottom line of that modification is a zero impact, but we'll, like I say, it's approving the expenditures. The impacts of the monetary and volume changes are estimated at this time, and those will be monitored to see if later modifications will be needed. Item 2, One Fire Helping Victims. It's also a general fund budget modification requesting an increase in expenditure authorization of $7,431. And that's related to offsetting projected contributions and donations coming into that budget. So it's also a zero impact. and there's a list of events attached with the budget that they propose to bring in those contributions and donations. And that's it.
Any questions?
Make a motion that we,
Thanks, Madam
He
Chair.
was before you.
On the tobacco tax rebate, didn't you project like 1 or 2 million for the next 2 months to pay for the rebate?
That's the overall, the total that was kind of a projection of what cash flow wise, but as far as the whole year, we're now bringing in all the money as a gross amount and paying it all back. Back out. We're used to, the smoke shops were just paying in a small portion to us and the rest of it was going to the state. So now the gross amount comes into us and we have to turn around and pay a good portion of it out, so.
It becomes the first of next year, is that right? The total gross amount, and it's an 11 million at one time?
Yeah, the 11 million is for, Sharon might be able to.
That's over from November all the way
Right.
through September. So that's for the whole year.
Right.
So we will get our first check from the state in January, but we had some that went on the subsidy plan or whatever you want to call it, where we gave them an upfront payment for November and an upfront partial payment for December. We will reconcile all those when we get it from January and then move forward from there.
So the 11 million will include that?
That's all of that, yes.
So basically, that's for the year then?
That's for the year, and it's just an estimate for the year. As soon as I get, like November reports are coming in, today's the due date. So when I get a couple of months reports in, then I can start, if I need to revise estimates, then I will, as soon as I get some data.
I see. Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget, and why don't we just get ahead of it and send it to council tonight?
Send it to council tonight?
Second.
Okay, there's motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. The next meeting will be, there'll be two of them. One, the 14th at 10 o'clock, and then one at the end of the month, and I've been closed my book, on Thursday, January 30th at 3 o'clock. Do I hear a motion?
Now, I want to make sure, Shelley, are you asking us to table to the special meeting? Are we tabling? Which is more convenient for you, to table?
You tabled the tarot, so we can adjourn this meeting instead of the special meeting, or just have the tarot on it.
Okay.
All those
And
in
that
favor? All those opposed? We're adjourned. Tax next.